Ji Woo stared at the data on her screen for the fifth time. She could not believe what she was seeing. The test results from Earth's latest space expedition were unlike anything she had ever seen before. As a research associate at the Galactic Science Council's main laboratory, she had seen many strange things, but this was different. "This can't be right," she said to herself, adjusting her lab coat. The small office around her was filled with screens showing different charts and numbers. All of them told the same story. Humans were doing things that should not be possible. Lead scientist Du Young walked into her office, his eyes tired but excited. "Ji Woo, have you finished looking at the data?" he asked, sitting down in the chair across from her desk. "Yes, sir, but I think we should run the tests again," Ji Woo replied, turning her screen so he could see it. "These humans from Earth, they're surviving in conditions that even our best genetically engineered beings struggle with." Do Young smiled and shook his head. "We've already run the tests 3 times. The results are real. These humans, these Deathworlders, as everyone calls them, they're doing it all without any genetic engineering at all." Ji Woo leaned back in her chair, trying to understand what this meant. For hundreds of years, the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had been using genetic engineering to make themselves better. They had changed their bodies to survive in space, on harsh planets, and in the most dangerous environments. But now, these humans from a planet everyone called a death world were showing them all up. The door opened again, and Director Hansol walked in. Everyone in the lab respected Hansol. He had led the Galactic Science Council's research division for 20 years. "I hear we have something interesting to discuss," he said, his voice calm but curious. Ji Woo quickly stood up and began explaining what they had found. She showed them the video feeds from the latest Earth expedition. The screens showed humans working in environments that should have killed them. They were lifting things that should have been too heavy, surviving temperatures that should have been too extreme, and solving problems that should have been too complex. "Look at this," Ji Woo said, pointing to one screen. This human team was trapped in a mining facility on Mars when their equipment failed. The backup systems were broken. The temperature was dropping fast. Our engineers said they would die within hours. She played the video. It showed the humans using basic tools and materials to create a makeshift heating system. They had taken parts from their broken machines and made something new, something that kept them alive for 3 days until help arrived. "That's impossible," said Chief Researcher Ta-hyun, who had just entered the room. He was known for not believing in anything unless he could prove it himself. "Our genetically engineered beings would have needed special equipment to survive that long. These humans must have had help." "They didn't," Du Young said firmly. "They did it all on their own. And this isn't the only example. We have hundreds of cases like this now." Director Hansol walked closer to the screens, his eyes studying every detail. "What makes them different?" he asked. "Why can they do these things when our engineered beings cannot?" Ji Woo had been thinking about this question all day. "I have a theory," she said. "It's not about their bodies. It's about their minds. These humans, they refuse to give up. They keep trying, even when everything seems impossible." "Stubbornness." Ta-hyun laughed. "You're saying they succeed because they're stubborn." "Not just stubborn," Ji Woo explained. "They're creative. They think differently than we do. When they face a problem, they don't just follow the standard solutions. They try new things. They take risks. And most importantly, they never accept failure as an option." Director Hansol nodded slowly. "Show me more," he said. For the next 2 hours, they watched more videos and studied more data. They saw humans surviving in deep space when their ships were damaged. They saw them building shelters in storms that should have killed them. They saw them finding ways to grow food in places where nothing should have grown. "This changes everything," Du Young said finally. "All these years, we've been trying to engineer the perfect beings. We've been changing genes and modifying bodies. But these humans, they achieved something better through pure determination and creativity. We need to study this more, Director Hansol decided. Ji-woo, I want you to lead a new research project. Find out exactly how these humans do these things. Study their problem-solving methods, their decision-making, everything. Sir, Ji-woo was surprised. She was just a research associate. Leading a project this important was a big responsibility. You saw this pattern first, Hansol explained. You understand what we're looking at here. And most importantly, you're willing to believe in something new. Tae-hyun stood up, his face serious. Director, with all respect, this is a mistake. We can't base our research on stubbornness. We need real scientific answers. Sometimes the real answers aren't what we expect them to be, Hansol replied calmly. Ji-woo, you'll have all the resources you need. Do-young will help you set everything up. As everyone left her office, Ji-woo looked at the screens again. She thought about all the years scientists had spent trying to create perfect beings through genetic engineering. And now, here were these humans from Earth, doing impossible things simply because they refused to believe they were impossible. She opened a new file on her computer and began typing. Project analysis, human adaptability and problem-solving in extreme conditions. She smiled as she wrote the first line. Subject of study, how years of genetic engineering could not match what Deathworlders achieved through pure stubbornness. Tomorrow, she would begin her real work. She would start studying these amazing humans who had turned their harsh, dangerous homeworld into an advantage. These people who had proven that sometimes the strongest trait isn't in your genes, it's in your determination to survive. As she worked late into the night, Ji-woo couldn't help but wonder what other surprises these humans would show them. One thing was certain, the galaxy's understanding of adaptation and survival was about to change forever. The screens in her office continued to show videos of humans doing the impossible, and for the first time in her career, Ji-woo felt like she was about to discover something truly revolutionary. Not in genes or engineered improvements, but in the simple, stubborn determination of a species that refused to be limited by what others called impossible. She saved her work and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans were probably doing something impossible right now, simply because nobody told them they couldn't. And soon, she would understand exactly how they did it. 1 month after her discovery, Ji-woo stood in front of the Galactic Science Council's review board. Her hands were steady as she prepared to present her proposal, but her heart was beating fast. This was her chance to prove that humans had something special. The experiment is simple, she explained to the board members. We put 2 teams in difficult situations. One team will be our best genetically engineered beings. The other team will be unmodified humans from Earth. Director Hansol leaned forward in his chair. And what do you expect to learn from this? We need to understand how humans solve problems differently, Ji-woo said. We've seen them succeed in emergency situations. Now we need to study them directly. Chief researcher Tae-hyun shook his head. This is a waste of resources, he argued. We already know genetic engineering is better. It's scientific. It's proven. Then you should have nothing to worry about, Ji-woo replied calmly. If genetic engineering is better, the enhanced team will win every time. The room went quiet. Ji-woo could see the board members thinking about her words. Finally, Director Hansol spoke. Very well. You have permission to run your experiment. Who will lead the teams? Ji-woo pressed a button on her display. 2 faces appeared on the screen. For the enhanced team, I selected Enhanced Specialist Hyunwoo. He has the most advanced genetic modifications we've ever created. He's stronger, faster, and smarter than any natural being. She switched to the second image. For the human team, I've chosen Minji. She's an exploration specialist from Earth. She has no genetic enhancements at all. Senior researcher Sangmin, who would be recording all the test results, studied Minji's file. Her physical abilities are average, he noted. Are you sure she's the right choice? That's exactly why I chose her, Ji-woo explained. She represents typical human abilities. If she can succeed, it proves our point about human adaptability. The next week, both teams arrived at the testing facility. Ji-woo watched through the observation window as Min-ji met her human team for the first time. They were talking and laughing together, already building connections. Meanwhile, Hanwoo's enhanced team stood in perfect formation, waiting for instructions. The first test begins in 1 hour, Ji-woo announced over the speaker system. Neither team knows what challenge they'll face. They'll have to figure it out as they go. Do-young joined her at the window. "What's the first test?" he asked quietly. "A broken environmental system," Ji-woo said. "They'll have to fix it before the air runs out. But there's a twist. Some of the replacement parts are wrong. They'll have to be creative." The test began. Both teams were sealed in identical rooms with failing air systems. The enhanced team immediately began working, their movements perfect and precise. They quickly identified the broken parts and started replacing them. The human team took a different approach. Instead of rushing to fix things, they gathered in a circle and talked. They were sharing ideas, thinking out loud. "What are they doing?" Ta-hyun demanded. "They're wasting time. The air is running out." But Ji-woo smiled. She could see Min-ji drawing diagrams on the floor, her team adding suggestions. They were planning something unusual. The enhanced team finished replacing all the parts, but their system wouldn't start. They tried again and again, not understanding why their perfect work wasn't succeeding. The wrong replacement parts were confusing them. Meanwhile, the human team had taken their system apart completely. They were rebuilding it in a way that was nothing like the original design. They were using parts in ways they weren't meant to be used. "That won't work," Sang-min said, making notes. "The system has to be built according to specifications." But it did work. The humans had created a completely new air circulation system using the wrong parts in creative ways. They finished just as the enhanced team was still trying to make the original design function. "Interesting," Director Hansol said, watching the humans celebrate their success. "But one test doesn't prove anything. What's next?" Over the next few days, Ji-woo put both teams through more challenges. They had to survive extreme temperatures, find ways out of trapped spaces, and solve complex puzzles. Each time, the enhanced team tried to use their superior abilities to power through the problems. And each time, the humans found unexpected solutions. "Look at this," Ji-woo said during one test. The teams were trying to cross a deep gap with limited materials. The enhanced team was trying to jump across, using their superior strength. But the gap was just slightly too wide, and they kept falling into the safety nets below. The humans didn't even try to jump. Instead, they built a simple bridge using their clothes tied together and reinforced with broken pieces of equipment. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. "They're breaking the rules," Ta-hyun complained. "They're not solving the problems the right way." "That's exactly the point," Ji-woo replied. "They don't care about the right way. They care about surviving, about succeeding." By the end of the week, the results were clear. The human team had succeeded more often than the enhanced team. They had done it by working together, by thinking creatively, and by never giving up. "The most interesting part," Sang-min said as he compiled his final report, "is how they handled failure. When the enhanced team failed at something, they kept trying the same approach, just with more effort. But the humans learned from each failure. They changed their methods. They adapted." Ji-woo added these observations to her growing research file. She had proven that human stubbornness and creativity could overcome seemingly superior genetic engineering. But she knew this was just the beginning. "What happens now?" Min-ji asked her after the final test. The human team leader had become fascinated by the research. "Now we take what we've learned and go bigger," Ji-woo said. "These were controlled tests. But the real proof will come when we face real challenges." As if answering her words, an urgent message flashed across her screen. There was an emergency at one of the frontier colonies. a situation that would put both humans and enhanced beings to the ultimate test. Jiwu looked at her research notes one last time before closing them. The controlled experiments had shown something important about human nature. But now they would see how that nature performed when real lives were at stake. She sent a message to Director Hansel, permission to extend the experiment to a real-world situation. His reply came quickly, permission granted, but be careful what you wish for. As she prepared for the next phase of her research, Jiwu couldn't help but smile. The humans had already surprised everyone with their test performance. She could only imagine what they would do when faced with a real crisis. After all, that's when human stubbornness truly showed its worth. The emergency message arrived at the Galactic Science Council's laboratory during the night shift. Colony Administrator Yi Jin's face appeared on the main screen, her expression worried. "We have a serious problem at Nova Colony," she reported. "Our main reactor is failing. If we can't fix it, we'll have to evacuate everyone." Jiwu listened carefully as Yi Jin explained the situation. Nova Colony was home to 10,000 people. The reactor powered everything: the air filters, the temperature controls, and the radiation shields. Without it, the colony would become uninhabitable within days. "We need help immediately," Yi Jin said. "The reactor's cooling system is damaged. Our engineers can't fix it. The radiation levels are too high for anyone to work there safely." Director Hansel turned to Jiwu. "This is your chance to test your theory in a real situation. Both teams are still here. Who do you want to send?" "Send both teams," Jiwu replied. "The enhanced team led by Hyunwoo, and the human team led by Minji. Let's see how they handle a real crisis." Taehyun objected immediately. "This is too dangerous. The enhanced team can handle it. We don't need to risk human lives." But Jiwu stood firm. "The humans have earned their chance. They might see solutions that others miss." Within hours, both teams arrived at Nova Colony. The enhanced team, led by Hyunwoo, went straight to the reactor control room. Their genetic modifications protected them from most of the radiation. They began running detailed scans and analysis of the reactor systems. Minji's human team took a different approach. They gathered in a meeting room with the colony's engineers, asking questions and drawing diagrams on the walls. They wanted to understand everything about how the reactor worked and what had been tried already. "The radiation levels are rising," Yi Jin announced after several hours. "The enhanced team reports they can't reach the main cooling pipes. Even with their protection, the radiation is too strong." Jiwu watched through the colony's camera system as Hyunwoo's team tried again and again to reach the reactor core. Their enhanced strength and intelligence couldn't overcome the simple fact that the radiation would kill them if they got too close. Meanwhile, Minji's team was doing something strange. They had gone to the colony's recycling center and were collecting old cleaning robots and broken machinery. They were taking the machines apart and putting them back together in new ways. "What are they doing?" Sang-min asked, making notes on his tablet. "The reactor is the problem, not the cleaning robots." Jiwu smiled. She was beginning to understand their plan. They're not trying to fix the cleaning robots. They're building something new. She was right. The humans had realized they couldn't reach the reactor themselves, so they were building robots that could. They used parts from the cleaning robots, added shielding from broken machinery, and programmed them with simple instructions. "This will never work," Taehyun said. "Those robots aren't designed for reactor repair. They're too simple." But the humans weren't trying to make perfect robots. They just needed robots that could reach the cooling pipes and follow basic commands. While the enhanced team was still trying to find a way to safely reach the reactor core, Minji's team sent their makeshift robots into the radiation zone. "The robots are reaching the cooling pipes," Yi Jin reported, surprise in her voice. "They're not very fast, but they're working." The humans controlled their robots from a safe distance, using them to repair the cooling system piece by piece. When one robot stopped working, they sent in another. It wasn't elegant, but it was working. Hyunwoo watched with growing interest as the human team's plan succeeded. His own team's superior abilities had been useless against the radiation, but these humans, using simple machines and creative thinking, were solving the problem. Reactor temperature dropping. Yi Jin announced after several tense hours. Cooling system is coming back online. Radiation levels are starting to decrease. The colony's emergency sirens finally stopped. People began cheering in the corridors. The crisis was over. Later, in the colony's main meeting room, both teams gathered to discuss what had happened. Ji-woo listened as Min-ji explained their solution. "We knew we couldn't beat the radiation," Min-ji said. "So we stopped trying to find a way to protect ourselves. Instead, we looked for things that could do the job for us. The colony had everything we needed. We just had to put it together differently." Hyunwoo nodded slowly. "Our enhanced abilities made us focus on direct solutions. We kept thinking about how to reach the reactor ourselves. We never considered using simple robots. Sometimes the best solution isn't about being stronger or smarter," Ji-woo said. "It's about looking at the problem differently." Director Hansol, watching through a video link, spoke up. "This proves your point, Ji-woo. The humans succeeded not because they were physically superior, but because they refused to accept that the problem was impossible. They found another way." Even Taehyun had to admit the humans had impressed him. "Their solution wasn't in any manual or protocol," he said. "They invented it on the spot. And it worked." As the teams prepared to leave Nova Colony, Administrator Yi Jin approached Ji-woo. "We've always relied on enhanced beings for our toughest problems," she said. "But today showed us something different. Sometimes we need people who can think beyond the obvious solutions." Ji-woo added the Nova Colony incident to her research files. It was perfect proof of what she had been trying to show. Years of genetic engineering had created beings with amazing abilities, but they still couldn't match the problem-solving creativity of humans who simply refused to give up. That evening, as she watched the colony's reactor readings return to normal, Ji-woo thought about how this would change things. The galaxy had spent centuries trying to create perfect beings through genetic engineering. Now they were learning that imperfect humans, armed with nothing but determination and creativity, could sometimes do even better. She looked forward to sharing these results with the Galactic Science Council, but she knew this was just the beginning. There would be more crises, more challenges, and more chances for humans to prove what they could do. As she prepared her report, Ji-woo added one final note. "The true strength of humans isn't in their bodies or their genes. It's in their stubborn refusal to accept failure, and their endless ability to find new solutions to old problems." 2 weeks after the Nova Colony crisis, Ji-woo sat in her laboratory with her colleague Junho, reviewing hours of recorded footage. They had cameras watching both teams during the entire reactor crisis, and every moment revealed something new about how humans and enhanced beings approached problems differently. "Look at this moment here," Junho said, pointing to a screen. The video showed Min-ji's team during their first planning meeting. "See how they argue with each other. Each person suggests different ideas. They disagree, but instead of causing problems, it makes their final plan better." Ji-woo nodded, making notes in her research file. "The enhanced team never argues," she observed. "They all think the same way because they're engineered to be perfect. But maybe being perfect isn't always the best approach." Director Hansol entered the laboratory, followed by Chief Researcher Taehyun. They had been traveling to different research stations, sharing what happened at Nova Colony. The story of how unmodified humans saved the colony had spread quickly through the scientific community. "The other research stations have many questions," Hansol said. "They want to know why the humans succeeded where our enhanced beings failed. What have you discovered?" Ji-woo stood up and walked to the main display screen. "We've identified several key factors," she explained. "First, humans expect things to go wrong. They don't trust that anything is perfect. This makes them more prepared when problems happen. She played a video clip showing Minji's team collecting spare parts before they started their repair work. See, they gathered extra supplies just in case their first plan didn't work. The enhanced team didn't do this because they were confident their superior abilities would be enough. That's inefficient, Taehyun argued. Gathering unnecessary supplies wastes time. But it saved them when their first robots failed, Junho pointed out. They had backup parts ready immediately. Jae-woo moved to the next clip. The second factor is even more interesting. Humans don't just solve the problems they face. They imagine problems that haven't happened yet and prepare for them too. The video showed the human team testing their robots in a safe area before sending them into the reactor. They deliberately caused different kinds of failures to see what would happen. This preparation helped them respond quickly when similar problems happened during the real repair work. The third factor is their relationship with failure, Ji-woo continued. Enhanced beings see failure as a flaw, something that shouldn't happen. But humans see failure as information. Each time something doesn't work, they learn from it. Director Hansol watched the screens thoughtfully. These are valuable insights. But there's something more fundamental here. Something about how humans think differently than we do. Yes, Ji-woo agreed. She had been thinking about this for days. It's about their history. Humans evolved on a planet that tried to kill them every day. They survived not by being perfect, but by being adaptable, by being stubborn. She brought up images of Earth, showing its many dangerous environments. Their planet has freezing poles and burning deserts. It has storms that can destroy cities. It has thousands of deadly creatures. Humans survived all of this without any genetic engineering at all. But how? Taehyun asked. He seemed genuinely curious now, no longer dismissive of the humans' achievements. By refusing to accept limitations, Junho said. He had been studying the psychological data from both teams. When we tell enhanced beings something is impossible, they believe us because they trust data and authority. When we tell humans something is impossible, they try to do it anyway. Jae-woo pointed to another screen showing brain scans from both teams. Look at this. When enhanced beings face a problem, they activate the parts of their brain that handle known solutions. But when humans face a problem, they activate parts of their brain that handle imagination and creativity. They don't just solve problems, Director Hansol realized. They reimagine them. Exactly, Ji-woo said. At Nova Colony, the enhanced team saw the problem as how do we survive the radiation long enough to fix the reactor? But the humans changed the question to how do we fix the reactor without going near it? They solved a different problem than the one we thought we had. She played more video clips showing other examples of human problem solving. They showed humans using tools in ways they weren't designed for, combining unrelated ideas to make new solutions, and working together to overcome their individual limitations. Their greatest strength isn't physical at all, Junho said. It's their ability to look at any situation and see possibilities that nobody else can see. Taehyun walked closer to the screens, studying the data carefully. All our genetic engineering focused on making better bodies and faster minds, he said. But we never thought about engineering creativity or stubbornness. Maybe we couldn't. Maybe those traits can't be engineered, Ji-woo suggested. Maybe they can only be developed through challenge and struggle, like the humans did on their Deathworld. Director Hansol nodded slowly. This changes our entire approach to improvement, he said. Instead of trying to engineer perfect beings, maybe we should be learning how to develop these human traits naturally. As they discussed the implications of their discoveries, Ji-woo received a message from Minji. The human team leader was requesting permission to stay and help with the research. She wanted to understand more about how her team's natural abilities compared to genetic engineering. They're curious about us, just as we're curious about them, Ji-woo told the others. Maybe that's another trait we should study, their desire to always learn and understand more. Later that evening, after everyone else had left, Ji-woo and Junho continued reviewing the data. They had learned so much, but they knew there was still more to understand about human adaptability. "What do you think this means for the future?" Junho asked. Jae-woo thought about it carefully. "I think it means we need to change how we think about improvement," she said. "Instead of trying to engineer perfect beings, we should be creating environments that challenge people to develop naturally, like Earth challenged humans." She looked at the final notes in her research file. The evidence was clear. Years of careful genetic engineering had created beings with amazing abilities, but they still couldn't match what humans had achieved through pure stubbornness and creativity. "Tomorrow we'll start planning the next phase of research," she told Junho. "There's still so much to learn about how humans think and solve problems. And maybe, if we're lucky, they can teach us how to be a little more stubborn too." 3 months after the Nova Colony crisis, the Galactic Science Council held a special meeting. Scientists from every major research station gathered to discuss the future of genetic engineering. Ji-woo stood at the front of the grand meeting hall, ready to present her team's final research findings. "For centuries, we believed genetic engineering was the only path to improvement," she began. "We were wrong. The humans have shown us another way." The room was silent as Ji-woo shared videos from their research. She showed clips from the early tests, the Nova Colony crisis, and new experiments they had conducted since then. Each example proved how human stubbornness and creativity could overcome seemingly impossible challenges. "But we're not suggesting we abandon genetic engineering," Ji-woo continued. "Instead, we propose combining both approaches. We can use engineering to improve bodies while using human methods to develop better problem-solving abilities." Director Hansol stepped forward to support her proposal. "We've already started a new training program," he explained. "Enhanced beings and humans are working together, learning from each other." On a large screen behind them, a new video played. It showed Hyunwoo and Min-ji leading their joint training session. The enhanced team was teaching the humans about their advanced technologies, while the humans were teaching them about creative problem-solving. "Watch this exercise," Ji-woo said, pointing to the screen. The video showed a complex puzzle that required both physical strength and creative thinking to solve. The mixed teams of humans and enhanced beings were performing better than either group had done alone. Together, they're achieving things neither group could do by themselves, she explained. The enhanced beings provide the physical capabilities, while the humans provide the creative solutions. Ta-hyun, who had once been their biggest critic, stood up to share his own observations. "We've discovered something remarkable," he said. "When enhanced beings spend time working with humans, they begin to think more creatively too. They learn to question their programming and consider new possibilities." Jae-woo nodded and brought up new brain scan data. "And the humans are learning too," she added. "Working with enhanced beings helps them understand advanced concepts more quickly. They're still solving problems in their unique way, but with better tools and knowledge." The council members watched as more evidence was presented. The results were clear. The new combined approach was producing better results than either method alone. "But there's something else we need to discuss," Ji-woo said. "Something about how we view Earth and other death worlds." She showed images of Earth's harsh environments again, but this time with a different message. "We used to think planets like Earth were cursed," she explained. "We felt sorry for species that evolved in such dangerous places, but now we understand. These challenges are what made humans so adaptable." The council began discussing how this new understanding could change their approach to colonizing difficult planets. Instead of trying to engineer perfect beings for each environment, they could help colonists develop natural adaptability, just as humans had. "We're already seeing results," Director Hansol reported. "The Nova Colony has started a new program based on these principles. They're teaching all their residents, both human and enhanced, to think creatively about problems." Min-ji, who had been invited to attend the meeting, stood up to share her perspective. "As a human, I never thought our stubbornness was special," she said. "We just never learned to give up. On Earth, giving up often meant death. So we always found another way." Hyun-woo spoke next, his enhanced mind having analyzed all the data. "I was engineered to be perfect," he said, "but working with humans has taught me that perfection can be a limitation. Sometimes the best solutions come from being imperfect but determined." As the meeting continued, Ji-woo felt proud of how far they had come. The galaxy's greatest scientists were now seriously discussing the value of stubbornness and creativity. They were planning new research projects that would combine the best of both worlds: genetic engineering and natural human adaptability. "There's one more thing," she said near the end of the meeting. "We need to change how we classify planets." She brought up the official classification system that labeled Earth as a death world. "These aren't death worlds," she explained. "They're training grounds. Every challenge these planets present is an opportunity for growth and adaptation. Earth didn't curse humanity. It prepared them." The Council voted unanimously to create a new classification system. Planets would no longer be labeled as death worlds. Instead, they would be recognized as crucibles of adaptation, places where species could develop the same kind of resilience that humans had. After the meeting, Ji-woo found herself in her laboratory with Jun-ho, Min-ji, and Hyun-woo. They were looking at their next research project, finding ways to help other species develop their own versions of human stubbornness. "Do you think it will work?" Jun-ho asked. "Can others learn what humans learned through evolution?" Min-ji smiled. "If there's one thing humans are good at, it's being stubborn about teaching stubbornness," she said. "We'll find a way." Hyun-woo nodded in agreement. "And we enhanced beings will help," he added. "We've learned that true improvement comes from combining different strengths." Ji-woo looked at her diverse team, human, enhanced, and everything in between. They were living proof that the best path forward wasn't just genetic engineering or just natural adaptation. It was bringing together all their different strengths and abilities. She opened a new research file on her computer and began typing. Project goal: developing universal adaptability training. She smiled as she added the subtitle: combining the precision of genetic engineering with the power of pure stubbornness. As she worked late into the night, Ji-woo thought about how far they had come. They had started by studying why humans could match genetically engineered beings. They had ended by discovering a whole new approach to advancement, one that valued determination and creativity as much as physical perfection. The future would be interesting, she knew. There would be new challenges and problems to solve. But now they had the best of both worlds: the enhanced abilities of genetic engineering and the unstoppable stubbornness of humanity. Together, there was no challenge they couldn't overcome.